The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark void between stars. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its many ports. The station was neutral ground where enemies could meet safely. Today, it hosted the most important meeting in galactic history. Captain Tae-ho looked out the window of his ship's bridge as they approached the station. The Endurance was not a beautiful ship. Its gray metal hull was thick and heavy. Scratches and dents covered its surface from years of hard service. The ship's engines were old fusion drives that pushed them forward slowly compared to other vessels. "Sir, we are 3 hours late," said Lieutenant Haewon from her station. She tried to hide the worry in her voice. "The other captains will not be happy." Tae-ho nodded but did not look concerned. "The engines work as they should. We arrive when we arrive." Through the viewports, they could see other ships already docked. The Etherian vessels looked like crystal sculptures that caught the starlight. Their hulls were smooth and perfect. The hegemony warships were massive triangular shapes covered in weapon ports. The apex ships were sleek and fast, built for quick strikes. Even the strange organic ships of the Hive looked more advanced than the human vessel. The docking bay assigned to the Endurance was in the station's lower section. As their ship settled onto the landing platform with a heavy thud, Tae-ho could see alien crews watching from other bays. Some pointed at the human ship and made gestures that clearly meant they found it amusing. "Captain, should we hurry to the meeting hall?" asked Chief Engineer Min-ho over the communication system. "No rushing," Tae-ho replied. "We go at our own pace." The walk through Nexus Prime's corridors took 20 minutes. The station was built to accommodate many different species, so the halls were wide and high. Alien beings of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Some had multiple arms, others walked on tentacles, and a few floated in the air using technology humans did not understand. When they reached the main conference hall, the meeting had already started. Admiral Kwon-sik of the Hegemony stood at the center, speaking to the gathered representatives. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. His uniform was covered in medals and rank insignia. "The Void Reapers have consumed 12 star systems in the past month," Admiral Kwon-sik was saying. "Their machine fleets grow stronger with each victory. We must act quickly before they reach the core worlds." Tae-ho and his officers found empty seats in the back row. Several alien heads turned to look at them. The captain heard whispers and saw pointing. He kept his face calm and listened to the discussion. Commander Yuna of the Etherians spoke next. She was beautiful in the way her people were known for, with silver skin that seemed to glow and long flowing hair that moved like liquid. "My scouts, report the Reapers are building something massive in the outer rim. We believe it is a weapon capable of destroying entire planets." The insectoid Hive Queen Du Hyun clicked her mandibles together, making a sound like breaking glass. Her 6 arms gestured as she spoke. "The Hive offers 100 bioships for this fight. Our living vessels can repair themselves in battle." Admiral Kwon-sik nodded approvingly. "Excellent. The Hegemony provides 50 dreadnoughts and twice as many support vessels." He looked around the room. "What forces do the other species contribute?" One by one, the alien representatives announced their contributions. The numbers were impressive. Thousands of ships with advanced weapons and shields, vessels that could travel faster than light in ways humans had never mastered. Finally, Admiral Kwon-sik's eyes fell on Tae-ho. "And what does humanity offer to this grand alliance?" Tae-ho stood slowly. Every alien eye in the room focused on him. "The Terran Defense Force sends 1 ship. The Endurance. Silence filled the hall. Then someone started laughing. It was Commander Sung Min of the Apex Confederation. His laughter was high and musical, but not kind. One ship? One old, slow ship against the machine armadas? Other aliens joined in the laughter. Admiral Quan Sik raised one of his hands for quiet, but his expression showed he was amused too. Captain Tae-ho, is it? Perhaps your people do not understand the scale of this threat. The Void Reapers field thousands of vessels. Each one is the size of your largest ships. I understand, Tae-ho said simply. We send what we can spare. What you can spare? Commander Yuna's voice was like silver bells, but there was mockery in it. Surely a species that has just reached the stars can spare more than one ancient vessel. Lieutenant Hai Wan shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She had served on the Endurance for 3 years and was proud of the ship. But sitting here among these advanced beings and their powerful fleets, she felt embarrassed. The human ship seemed like a joke. The Endurance is a good ship, Tae-ho said. It has served well for 20 years. This brought more laughter. 20 years was ancient by alien standards. Most of their ships were replaced every few years as technology improved. Admiral Quan Sik waved his hand dismissively. Very well. The humans may participate, though I suggest you remain in the rear guard. We would not want your valuable vessel damaged in actual combat. The insult was clear, but Tae-ho just nodded. As you wish. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. The alien commanders shared intelligence about Void Reaper movements and tactics. They discussed battle formations and attack strategies. Tae-ho listened carefully to everything but said nothing more. When asked for opinions, he simply stated that he would follow the fleet's orders. As the meeting ended, groups of alien officers gathered to continue their discussions. Nobody approached the human delegation. Tae-ho and his officers walked back toward their ship alone. Captain, Lieutenant Hai Wan said quietly as they moved through the corridors. Why did Earth only send one ship? Surely we have more vessels available. The Defense Force has 47 combat-ready ships, Tae-ho replied. But they asked for volunteers for this mission. The Endurance was the only ship whose crew voted to come. Navigator Jiwoo looked surprised. Voted? The crew voted to join this fight? Every person on the ship chose to be here, Tae-ho said. Nobody was ordered. Nobody was forced. We are here because we want to be. They reached their ship and prepared for departure. Through the viewports, they could see the alien fleets forming up. Hundreds of sleek, powerful warships moved into formation. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields and advanced armor. Weapon. Systems that could destroy cities charged with deadly light. The Endurance started its engines with a low rumble. While other ships shot away from the station like arrows, the human vessel moved forward steadily at its own pace. Other captains would reach the first rally point in hours. The Endurance would take most of a day. Sir, Chief Engineer Min-ho called from his station, the other ships are already jumping to hyperspace. Should we try to keep up? No, Tae-ho said, settling into his captain's chair. We travel at our own speed. We fight in our own way. Lieutenant Hai Wan watched the alien ships disappear one by one into bright flashes of light. Soon the Endurance was alone in space, moving slowly toward a war that might determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. She wondered if they were heroes or fools. Time would tell which. The rally point was a dead star system on the edge of known space. When the Endurance finally arrived, the combined fleet was already assembled. Hundreds of ships floated in formation, their hulls reflecting the dim light of distant stars. The sight was magnificent and terrible. Admiral Quan 6's flagship, the Dominator, was a massive triangular vessel 5 kilometers long. Its dark hull bristled with plasma cannons and missile ports. Energy shields shimmered around it like a soap bubble made of lightning. Smaller hegemony ships formed protective wings around their admiral's vessel. The Etherian fleet looked like a collection of floating jewels. Their ships were made from some crystal-like material that bent light in strange ways. Commander Yuna's flagship seemed to be carved from a single giant diamond. Weapons that fired pure energy extended from its surface like deadly branches. The hive ships were the strangest of all. They looked alive because they were alive. Giant creatures bred for war floated in space, their organic hulls pulsing with bioelectric patterns. Weapon pods grew from their sides like tumors. The largest bioship was Hive Queen Do-hyun's personal vessel, a creature the size of a small moon. When the Endurance approached the fleet, several alien ships moved to intercept. Their captains wanted to see the famous human vessel up close. What they found disappointed them. "This is what humans call a warship?" The voice came over the communication channel. It belonged to Captain Rion of the Etherian Navy. His ship circled the Endurance like a predator studying prey. "It appears to be held together with metal patches and hope." The human ship did look rough compared to the elegant alien vessels. Its hull was thick and angular, built for function rather than beauty. Weapon turrets sat on its surface like mechanical warts. The ship's superstructure was a maze of pipes, cables, and access panels. To alien eyes, it looked primitive and crude. "At least it moves under its own power," said another voice. Commander Tusk of the Apex Fleet brought his sleek vessel alongside the Endurance. "Though barely, my fighter craft could fly circles around this ancient relic." Inside the Endurance's bridge, Lieutenant Haywan listened to the alien comments with growing anger. "Sir, should we respond to these insults?" Captain Tejo sat in his command chair, watching the tactical display show the positions of all fleet vessels. "Let them talk. Words do not damage hull plating." "But, sir, they are making us look weak," protested Navigator Ji-woo. "The other humans in the fleet will hear these transmissions." "What other humans?" asked Chief Engineer Min-ho from his station. "We are the only human ship here." Tejo nodded slowly. "Exactly. We represent all of humanity to these beings. Our actions matter more than their words." The fleet communication system crackled to life. Admiral Quan 6's voice filled every ship's bridge. "All vessels, prepare for fleet formation briefing. Squadron leaders report to the Dominator for tactical discussion." "Should I prepare the shuttle, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Haywan. "No need," Tejo replied. "We are not squadron leaders. We are one ship." 2 hours later, the tactical briefing began. It was transmitted to all ships in the fleet. Admiral Quan 6 stood before a massive holographic display showing the local star systems. Red dots marked known Void Reaper positions. Blue dots showed the Allied fleet. "Intelligence reports indicate Reaper scout forces in the Kepler system," the Admiral explained. 12 enemy vessels conducting reconnaissance. We will engage them with overwhelming force to send a message." Commander Yuna appeared on the display next to him. "The Etherian fast attack squadrons will strike first. Our ships can outrun anything the Reapers field." Hive Queen Do-hyun's image materialized beside them. Her translated voice buzzed with electronic static. Hive bioships will follow the first wave. Our living vessels adapt quickly to enemy tactics. The Hegemony Heavy Assault Fleet will provide the main attack, Admiral Quan-Sik continued. Our firepower will finish any Reapers that survive the initial strikes. Commander Sung-min of the Apex Confederation smiled as his image joined the briefing. Apex stealth ships will eliminate any enemies that try to escape. Nothing will survive to report our capabilities. The tactical display showed the battle plan. Wave after wave of attacks designed to completely destroy the Reaper scouts. It was a good plan that used each species' strengths effectively. "What about the human ship?" asked Captain Rion. "Where does it fit in this strategy?" Admiral Quan-Sik paused as if he had forgotten about the Endurance entirely. "The human vessel will provide support. They can guard the supply ships and pick up survivors if needed. Support duties?" Commander Sung-min laughed. "Perhaps they can also clean up the debris after we win." More laughter came from the alien commanders. Even some of their subordinates joined in. On the Endurance's bridge, Lieutenant Hae-won's face turned red with embarrassment and anger. "This is insulting, sir," she whispered to Tae-ho. "We are warriors, not janitors." "Peace, Lieutenant," Tae-ho said quietly. "Every role serves the mission." The briefing continued for another hour. The alien commanders discussed formation timing, communication protocols, and target priorities. They planned every detail of the coming battle, except for anything involving the human ship. The Endurance was clearly considered dead weight by the fleet leadership. When the briefing ended, Tae-ho stood and walked to the navigation station. "Jiwoo, plot a course to the Kepler system. Standard approach." "Sir," Navigator Jiwoo said carefully, "the fleet plans to use hyperspace jumps for rapid deployment. We could try to keep up if we pushed our engines past safety limits." "No," Tae-ho replied firmly. "We travel at our normal speed. We arrive when we arrive." "But, sir," Lieutenant Hae-won protested, "if we are too late, the battle will be over before we get there." Tae-ho returned to his command chair and activated his personal data pad. The screen showed technical specifications for Void Reaper vessels, information gathered from previous encounters with the machine race. He had been studying these files for weeks. "Perhaps that would be for the best," he said, without looking up. "Let others fight first. We will watch and learn." Chief Engineer Min Ho called from his station. "Captain, the other fleets are preparing to jump. Their engines are charging up. Through the viewports, they could see alien ships beginning to glow with pre-jump energy. The Etherian vessels became even more brilliant, like stars preparing to explode. The Hegemony ships surrounded themselves with crackling electrical fields. The bioships of the Hive pulsed with organic light. One by one, the alien fleets disappeared in flashes of twisted space-time. Each jump left behind a brief burst of exotic radiation, and then nothing. Within minutes, hundreds of ships had vanished, leaving the Endurance alone in empty space. "All fleets have jumped, sir," reported Navigator Jiwoo. "We are the last ship in the system. Then we begin our journey," Tae-ho said. He closed his datapad and looked at the tactical display. Ahead 1/4 impulse. Set course for Kepler. The Endurance turned slowly and began moving toward distant stars. Its fusion engines glowed with steady blue light. The ship would take 18 hours to reach the battle site at its current speed. By then, the fight would be long over. Lieutenant Hae-won watched the stars ahead and wondered what they would find when they finally arrived. Would there be anything left for them to do? Would the other commanders even remember they existed? Behind them, space was empty and quiet. Ahead lay the unknown. The Kepler system was a graveyard when the Endurance finally arrived. Pieces of destroyed ships floated in the dark void like metal snow. Some chunks were as small as a person's fist. Others were sections of hull large enough to hold entire crews. The debris field stretched across millions of kilometers. By the ancestors, whispered Navigator Ji-Woo as she stared at the destruction. What happened here? Captain Tae-ho studied the tactical display with calm eyes. The computer had identified wreckage from 17 different vessels. Most were alien ships from the combined fleet. Only 3 pieces belonged to Void Reaper scouts. Sir, I am detecting survivors, reported Lieutenant Hae-won from her sensor station. Multiple life pods scattered throughout the debris field. Begin. Rescue operations immediately, Tae-ho ordered. All available shuttles and work pods. Bring in anyone still alive. The Endurance moved slowly through the wreckage. Its thick hull could withstand impacts from the smaller debris, but the crew had to be careful. Sharp metal fragments could damage their rescue craft if they moved too fast. The first life pod they recovered held Commander Sung-min of the Apex Confederation. His sleek uniform was torn and bloody. Burns covered half his face. When the medical team brought him to the bridge, his eyes were wide with shock. Captain Tae-ho, Sung-min gasped. Thank the Void you came. I thought we were all dead. What happened here? Tae-ho asked gently. Where are the other ships? Sung-min's hands shook as he tried to speak. The Reapers were waiting for us. They knew we were coming. It was a trap. Over the next 6 hours, the Endurance rescued 43 survivors from various species. Each told a similar story. The Void Reaper scouts had not been conducting reconnaissance. They had been bait. Captain Rion of the Etherian Navy was pulled from a damaged escape pod. His crystal-like skin was cracked and dim. 12 scout ships became 50 in minutes, he said weakly. They had reinforcements hiding behind the gas giant's moons. Hive Queen Do-hyun's rescue pod contained only her and 2 damaged bio-drones. The Queen's 6 arms moved in agitated patterns as she spoke through her translator. The machines adapted to our attacks immediately. Every weapon we used, they found a defense. The most devastating report came from Admiral Kwon-sik himself. The hegemony leader had been found floating in a command pod torn from his flagship's bridge. His proud uniform was now just rags, and 2 of his 4 arms hung useless at his sides. We hit them with everything, he said, his voice hollow with defeat. Plasma cannons, energy torpedoes, particle beams. The first few shots damaged their hulls. Then they changed. Their armor adapted. Our weapons became useless. Tae-ho listened to each report carefully. He asked questions about Reaper ship movements, weapon types, and defensive measures. The survivors seemed grateful that someone wanted to hear their stories, even if it was just the captain of the despised human ship. Sir, Chief Engineer Min-ho called from his station, I am reading massive energy signatures in the outer system. Something big is moving this way. The tactical display lit up with new contacts. A Reaper battle group was approaching the debris field. 6 massive harvester ships, each one the size of a small city. They moved in perfect formation. They're dark, hulls bristling with unknown weapons. All survivors to emergency shelters, Tae-ho ordered. Prepare for combat. Sir, Lieutenant Hae-won said urgently, we cannot fight 6 harvesters alone. We should retreat. No, Tae-ho replied. He was studying the sensor readings of the approaching Reapers. We stay. We observe. Admiral Kwon-sik struggled to his feet, despite his injuries. Captain, you do not understand. Those ships will destroy you in minutes. The Endurance cannot stand against even one harvester. Perhaps, Tejo said, but we will learn what we can. The Reaper ships reached the debris field and began their grisly work. Massive tractor beams pulled in pieces of destroyed vessels. The machines were harvesting the wreckage, stealing technology and materials from their defeated enemies. "They are analyzing our ships," Commander Yuna said from where she sat recovering. "Learning our weapons, our defenses, our weaknesses." Tejo nodded and activated the ship's passive sensors. The Endurance remained hidden among the larger pieces of debris, recording everything the Reapers did. His crew watched in fascination and horror as the machine ships methodically collected every useful scrap. "Sir, they are scanning our direction," reported Navigator Ji Woo. "I think they might have detected us." "Hold position," Tejo ordered. "Do not power weapons or shields. Let them think we are debris." The largest Reaper ship turned toward their position. Its hull was black as space itself, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Scanner beams swept over the Endurance like searchlights looking for hidden enemies. Lieutenant Hei Wan held her breath as the enemy scan passed over them again. The Reaper ship moved closer, its massive bulk blocking out the stars. Everyone on the bridge could see weapon, ports opening along its hull. Then, suddenly, the machine ship turned away. Its attention had been caught by something else, a larger piece of wreckage that contained valuable technology. The Reaper fleet finished their harvesting and moved toward the system's edge. "They are leaving," whispered Commander Sung Min. "But why did they not see us?" Tejo was studying the sensor logs from the encounter. His eyes moved quickly over the data, analyzing everything the ship's computers had recorded. "Chief Minho, bring up the composition analysis of our hull plating." The engineer's fingers danced over his controls. "Standard Terran steel and ceramic composite, sir. Nothing special about it." "Exactly," Tejo said. "Nothing special, nothing advanced. To their sensors, we looked like old debris." Admiral Quan Sik stared at the human captain. "You mean they ignored us because our ship is primitive?" "I mean they ignored us because we are not a threat they recognize," Tejo corrected. "Their adaptive systems focus on advanced technology. Energy weapons, exotic materials, quantum shields, things that can hurt them." He turned to Chief Engineer Minho. "What did our passive scans reveal about Reaper hull composition?" Minho consulted his readings. "Dense metallic armor with some kind of adaptive overlay. The surface material changed structure when hit by energy weapons. But, sir, there are stress patterns in the base metal. Weak points that appear after the adaptive layer has been active for extended periods." "Weak points vulnerable to what type of damage?" Tejo asked. The engineer's eyes widened with understanding. "Kinetic impact, sir. Old-fashioned physical force." Tejo nodded and turned to the tactical display. He began marking positions where Reaper ships had shown structural weaknesses during their scavenging operations. Points where their perfect armor had tiny flaws. "Sir," Lieutenant Hei Wan said quietly, "are you planning what I think you are planning?" "I am planning to learn," Tejo replied. "Every enemy has weaknesses, even perfect machines." The survivors from the destroyed fleet watched as the human captain continued his analysis. They had seen their advanced ships torn apart by superior technology. Now they watched a primitive vessel's crew calmly studying their destroyers like scientists examining insects. "Captain," Admiral Kwansik said slowly, "perhaps we underestimated human capabilities." "Perhaps," Tejo agreed. "But the Reapers underestimate us too. That may prove useful." The Endurance began moving through the debris field again, continuing rescue operations. But now Tejo's crew worked with new purpose. They were not just saving lives. They were gathering intelligence for a war that was far from over. 3 more battles followed over the next month. Each one ended the same way. Initial success for the Allied fleet, followed by devastating losses when the Void Reapers adapted to their tactics. The survivors always had the same story to tell. The second battle took place near a mining colony in the Vega system. Commander Yuna led a strike force of 30 Etherian ships against a Reaper construction site. Her crystal vessels moved like liquid light, firing energy beams that could cut through asteroids. For the first hour, they destroyed 6 enemy ships. Then the Reapers changed. Their hulls began reflecting the Etherian weapons back at their attackers. Beams of pure energy bounced off machine ships and struck the crystal vessels that had fired them. Within minutes, 25 Etherian ships were gone. Commander Yuna's flagship limped away with half its crew dead. The Endurance arrived 8 hours after the battle ended. Captain Tejo's crew rescued the survivors and studied the wreckage. This time, Tejo spent 6 hours examining the destroyed Reaper ships personally. He wore a spacesuit and walked through their twisted hulls, taking measurements and samples. "Sir, what are you looking for?" asked Chief Engineer Minho through the communication link. "Patterns," Tejo replied as he scraped metal samples from a damaged hull plate. "Everything follows patterns if you know how to look." Lieutenant Haywan monitored the salvage operation from the bridge. She watched her captain moving methodically through alien wreckage, seemingly unafraid of potential traps or remaining weapons. His calm behavior puzzled her. "He acts like he is shopping in a market," she muttered to Navigator Jiwoo. "Maybe he is," Jiwoo replied thoughtfully. "Shopping for information." The third battle was a disaster from the beginning. Hive Queen Do-hyun brought 50 bioships to attack a Reaper supply convoy. The living vessels were magnificent creatures bred for war. Their organic weapons fired acid projectiles that could melt through any known armor. The Reapers adapted. In 20 minutes, their hulls began secreting a neutralizing substance that turned the Hive's acid harmless. Worse, they started using some kind of biological weapon that infected the bioships themselves. The living vessels turned against each other as the infection spread. Do-hyun escaped with only 12 ships. The rest were either destroyed or corrupted by Reaper bioweapons. When the Endurance arrived, they found former Hive vessels wandering in space like diseased animals, their crews dead or transformed into something no longer recognizable as sentient beings. "We cannot even retrieve the bodies," Do-hyun said bitterly. "The infection spreads to anything that comes near." Tejo studied the corrupted bioships from a safe distance. He ordered detailed scans of their altered biology and recorded everything the ship's sensors could detect. His crew noticed that he seemed more interested in the enemy's adaptation methods than in the tragedy that had befallen their allies. "Sir," Lieutenant Haywan said privately, "some of the survivors think you do not care about their losses." "I care," Tejo replied quietly. "But grief does not defeat enemies. Understanding does." The fourth battle broke Admiral Quan Six's spirit completely. He led the remaining hegemony heavy ships in a direct assault on a Reaper fortress world. 200 vessels attacked with everything they had: plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, gravity bombs. For a brief moment, it seemed they might succeed. The Reapers' response was swift and terrible. They deployed a weapon that turned the hegemony ship's own energy against them. Plasma cannons exploded when fired. Quantum torpedoes detonated in their launch tubes. Energy shields collapsed and crushed the ships they were meant to protect. Admiral Quan Six's flagship was one of only 15 vessels to escape. When the Endurance found them, the once proud admiral was a broken being. 2 more of his arms had been lost in the battle. His remaining crew looked at him with pity rather than respect. "They are learning from every engagement," Quan-Sik said dully. "Every weapon we use, every tactic we employ, they become immune to everything." "Not everything," Tae-Ho said quietly, but he did not explain what he meant. During the rescue operations, Navigator Jiwoo began to notice something strange about their captain's orders. He would instruct them to take seemingly random courses through debris fields. He would order weapon maintenance schedules that made no tactical sense. He would have them practice maneuvers that appeared to serve no purpose. "Sir," she asked one day, "why did you have us fire the railguns at that asteroid? We have not used kinetic weapons in actual combat yet." "Practice," Tae-Ho replied simply. "A weapon unused is a weapon forgotten." Chief Engineer Min-Ho was equally puzzled by some of the captain's requests. Tae-Ho had ordered modifications to their missile systems that seemed to make them less effective. He had requested changes to their armor plating that added weight without improving protection. "Captain," Min-Ho said during one of their private meetings, "some of these modifications will actually reduce our combat effectiveness against conventional threats." "Yes," Tae-Ho agreed, "but we do not face conventional threats." Lieutenant Hae-Won kept detailed logs of every battle report they received. At Tae-Ho's request, she analyzed the timing of Reaper adaptations. How long did it take them to counter energy weapons? How quickly could they adjust to new tactics? What patterns emerged in their defensive responses? "Sir, I have compiled the data you requested," she reported. "The Reapers show consistent adaptation speeds. Energy weapons are countered within 15 to 20 minutes. Exotic matter weapons take slightly longer, perhaps 30 minutes. Biological weapons are neutralized the fastest, usually within 10 minutes. "And kinetic weapons?" Tae-Ho asked. Hae-Won checked her records. "Sir, there is no data on kinetic weapons. None of the Allied fleets have used them in combat." "Interesting," Tae-Ho said. "Very interesting." Word of the continued. Defeats spread throughout the galaxy. Several species began withdrawing their fleets from the Alliance. The Etherians recalled all but 12 of their vessels. The Hive declared their bioships too valuable to risk in hopeless battles. Even some hegemony worlds questioned Admiral Quan-Sik's leadership. Through it all, the Endurance continued its strange mission. The human ship arrived late to every battle, rescued survivors, and studied the aftermath. Other captains began to see the humans as scavengers rather than allies. Some wondered if they were even truly committed to the fight. "The human ship brings bad luck," Commander Sung-min said during one survivor briefing. "Every battle they attend, we lose." "Perhaps they should stay away from the next engagement," suggested Captain Rian. "Let real warriors handle the fighting." Tae-Ho listened to these comments without reaction. He continued his methodical study of Reaper capabilities and weaknesses. His crew noticed that he spent hours each day reviewing combat recordings and technical data. Whatever he was looking for, he had not found it yet. But Lieutenant Hae-Won began to suspect that her captain was planning something. The random course corrections were not random. The weapon modifications had a purpose. The practice maneuvers were preparation for some specific action. "Sir," she said one evening as they traveled between star systems, "when will we stop running from these battles and start fighting them?" Tae-Ho looked up from his datapad. For the first time in weeks, he smiled. "Soon, Lieutenant. Very soon." In the distance, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. Somewhere among them, the Void Reapers continued their advance. And somewhere else, a human captain continued his patient preparations for a war that others had already given up hope of winning. The intelligence report arrived like a thunderbolt through the demoralized fleet. A deep space probe had discovered something that changed everything: the location of the primary Void Reaper staging area. The probe's data showed a captured mining world called Terminus in the outer rim. The planet's surface was covered with massive construction yards where the Reapers were building their invasion fleet. Thousands of ships in various stages of completion filled orbital facilities that stretched across 3 moons. "This is our chance," Admiral Kwansik announced during the emergency fleet briefing. His remaining 2 arms gestured weakly at the holographic display. "If we can destroy their shipyards, we can cripple their advance." The alien commanders gathered around. The tactical projection looked tired and defeated. Weeks of losses had taken their toll on everyone, but the sight of the Reaper facility sparked new hope in their eyes. Commander Yuna studied the intelligence data with interest. "The facility appears heavily defended. I count at least 200 Guardian ships in the immediate area." "Guardian. Ships we can handle," said Hive Queen Do-hyun through her translator. "But those orbital platforms mount weapons we have never seen before." Commander Sung-min nodded grimly. "The construction yards themselves may be weaponized. The Reapers would not leave their primary facility undefended." Admiral Kwansik straightened what remained of his military bearing. "Nevertheless, we must try. This may be our last opportunity to strike a meaningful blow against the enemy." The surviving fleet was a shadow of its former strength. 41 ships remained from the hundreds that had answered the initial call. Most were damaged from previous battles. Many crews were short-handed due to casualties. "We will attack in 3 waves," Admiral Kwansik explained. "The Etherian fast ships will strike the outer defenses first. Hive bioships will follow up against the orbital platforms. Hegemony heavy ships will deliver the killing blow against the shipyards themselves." It was a desperate plan, but it was a plan. For the first time in weeks, the Allied commanders showed genuine enthusiasm. They began discussing formation details and target priorities with renewed energy. "What about the human ship?" asked Captain Rian. The question was asked almost as an afterthought. Admiral Kwansik paused as if he had forgotten about the Endurance entirely. His eyes searched the briefing display until he found the lone human vessel icon floating at the edge of their formation. "The Endurance will—" He hesitated, trying to think of a useful role for the despised human ship. "They will provide rear, guard security, protect our supply vessels, and rescue any survivors who are forced to retreat." Commander Sung-min laughed, but there was no humor in it. Rescue duty again. How appropriate for our human friends. Taeho listened to the exchange without visible emotion. When asked if he understood his orders, he simply nodded. "The Endurance will remain in the rear as requested." After the briefing ended, the alien commanders continued their planning discussions. They talked about approach vectors, weapon timing, and coordination signals. Nobody included the human captain in these conversations. Lieutenant Hae-won watched the other officers ignore her captain and felt anger building in her chest. "Sir, this is insulting. We should demand a real combat role." "No," Taeho replied calmly. "We have exactly the role we need." "The role we need?" Navigator Jiwoo looked confused. "To pick up wreckage and survivors?" Taeho stood and walked to the tactical display. He studied the intelligence data about the Terminus system, paying particular attention to the asteroid fields and gas giant orbits near the target world. "Chief Min-ho," he said without turning around, "what is the status of our special modifications?" The engineer consulted his data pad. "All railgun systems have been upgraded with the new targeting packages. Missile warheads have been replaced with the kinetic penetrators you requested. Armor plating modifications are complete. Kinetic penetrators? Lieutenant Haywan looked surprised. Sir, when did we load kinetic warheads? Those are ancient weapons. Ancient and forgotten, Taeho agreed. Which makes them perfect for our purposes. He turned to Navigator Jiwoo. Plot a course to the terminus system, not the direct route the fleet will take. I want the long way around through the nebula. Sir, that route will add 2 days to our travel time, Jiwoo protested. The battle will be over before we arrive. Yes, Taeho said simply. That is the plan. Over the next few hours, the Endurance prepared for departure in ways that puzzled its crew. Instead of joining the main fleet formation, they set course for empty space. Their route would take them through a dense nebula that would hide them from all sensors. Sir, Chief Engineer Minho called from his station. Admiral Kwan-sik is requesting confirmation of our position. He wants to know why we are not with the supply ships. Tell him we are conducting a reconnaissance mission, Taeho replied. We will survey the system for potential escape routes. It was not entirely a lie. Taeho did plan to survey the system thoroughly, but not for escape routes. He had spent weeks studying Void Reaper movement patterns, construction techniques, and defensive strategies. Now he needed to see their primary facility with his own eyes. Captain, Lieutenant Haywan said privately, the crew is starting to ask questions. They want to know why we are avoiding the main battle. Tell them the truth, Taeho replied. We are going to conduct our own operation. What kind of operation? Taeho activated his personal datapad and showed her a series of technical diagrams. They showed Void Reaper ship construction methods, structural weak points, and power distribution systems. Months of patient study had revealed patterns that no one else had noticed. The kind of operation only we can perform, he said quietly. The Endurance slipped into the nebula like a ghost. The dense gas clouds would hide them from any sensors, but they also made navigation difficult. Jiwoo had to plot their course carefully to avoid gravitational anomalies and radiation storms. Sir, we will need to maintain radio silence until we clear the nebula, she reported. Any transmissions might give away our position. Good, Taeho said. Let the fleet think we are lost in the clouds. It will make our arrival more surprising. As they traveled through the glowing mists of the nebula, Taeho gathered his senior officers for a private briefing. What he told them made Lieutenant Haywan's eyes widen with shock. Sir, that plan is completely insane, she whispered. One ship against an entire Reaper facility? One ship they will not expect, Taeho corrected. One ship using weapons they have never encountered. One ship arriving when they are focused on the main battle. Chief Engineer Minho studied the technical specifications Taeho had prepared. The modifications we have made will help, but, sir, the odds are still impossible. The odds were impossible for every battle we have fought, Taeho replied. Yet, here we are. Navigator Jiwoo looked at the course projections. If we time this correctly, we will arrive exactly when the main fleet is engaging the outer defenses. All Reaper attention will be focused on the obvious threat. Exactly, Taeho said. While they adapt to counter-energy weapons and exotic matter, we will hit them with something they have forgotten exists. Lieutenant Haywan studied her captain's face. She had served with him for 3 years, but she was seeing a side of him she had never known existed. This was not the slow, careful commander the aliens mocked. This was a predator who had been patient watching his prey. Sir, she said slowly, you planned this from the beginning, didn't you? All those weeks of arriving late, studying wreckage, asking strange questions. You were preparing for this moment. Tejo nodded. Every great victory requires great preparation. The Reapers have shown us their strengths. Now we will show them our own. The Endurance continued its journey through the nebula. Behind them, the Allied fleet raced toward what they hoped would be their greatest victory. Ahead lay a trap within. A trap, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. None of them knew that in 2 days, everything would change. The main assault began exactly as planned. Commander Yuna's 12 remaining Etherian ships struck the outer defense perimeter like crystalline arrows. Their energy beams lit up the void as they engaged the Reaper Guardian vessels. For the first 30 minutes, it looked like the Allied forces might actually succeed. Admiral Quan Sik watched from his damaged flagship as the Etherian ships danced through enemy fire. Their crystal hulls reflected and focused stellar radiation into deadly cutting beams. 3 Reaper ships exploded in the opening minutes of the battle. Phase 1 is proceeding as expected, reported his tactical officer. Etherian forces have breached the outer perimeter, but Quan Sik had seen this pattern before. Early success, followed by devastating adaptation. He gripped his command chair with his remaining arms and waited for the inevitable reversal. It came sooner than expected. The Reaper ships began changing, their hull composition in real time. Their dark metal surfaces became mirror-bright, reflecting the Etherian energy beams back at their attackers. Within minutes, 5 crystal ships were destroyed by their own weapons. "Sir, Commander Yuna is requesting immediate support," the communications officer called out. "Send in the hive ships," Quan Sik ordered. "Phase 2 begins now." Hive Queen. Du Hyun's bio ships emerged from the asteroid field where they had been hiding. The living vessels moved with organic grace, their weapons ports opening like flowering buds. Streams of bioacid and living projectiles poured toward the Reaper formations. For a brief moment, the biological weapons found their mark. Reaper hulls began dissolving under the acid attacks. But the machine ships adapted again, secreting neutralizing compounds that turned the organic weapons harmless. Worse, they began broadcasting some kind of viral signal that affected the bioship's nervous systems. "My children are in pain," Do Hyun reported over the fleet communication channel. Her translated voice carried electronic screams. "The machines are attacking their minds." Admiral Quan Sik watched in horror as several bioships began firing on each other. The Reaper virus was turning the living vessels against their own fleet. He had no choice but to order the final phase early. "All hegemony ships begin the main assault," he commanded. "Target the construction yards directly." 18 heavy cruisers and battleships emerged from hyperspace around the planet terminus. Their plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes filled space with devastating firepower. The orbital construction yards shuddered under the impact of the heaviest weapons in the galaxy. For one glorious hour, it seemed the plan might work. Reaper shipyards exploded in chain reactions that lit up the planet's night side. Partially constructed vessels broke apart and fell toward the surface in burning pieces. The alien commanders allowed themselves to hope. Then the trap revealed itself. "Sir, massive energy readings from the planet's surface," the sensor officer reported. "Something big is powering up down there." The mining world's crust split open like an egg. Beneath the false surface lay a weapon platform the size of a continent. It had been hidden there for months, maybe years, waiting for exactly this moment. The Reapers had known the Allies would eventually discover this location. They had turned it into the ultimate killing ground. The planetary weapon fired. A beam of pure destruction lanced out and vaporized Admiral Quan 6 flagship in a single instant. The ship simply ceased to exist, leaving only expanding gas where 2,000 crew members had been moments before. "All ships, emergency scatter," Commander Yuna's voice screamed over the communication channels. "It is a trap. The whole system is a trap." More beams erupted from the planet's surface. Each shot destroyed another Allied vessel. The hegemony battleships, pride of their civilization, died one by one under the merciless bombardment. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. In space near the gas giant's fourth moon, the Endurance finally emerged from the nebula. Captain Taeho stood on his bridge and watched the distant battle through his ship's telescopes. Flashes of light marked the death of each Allied vessel. "Sir, should we move to assist?" asked Lieutenant Haewon. Her voice was tight with emotion as she watched their allies die. "No," Taeho replied calmly. "We stick to the plan." "Sir, they are being slaughtered," Navigator Jiwoo protested. "If we do not help them, they will all die." "They are already dead," Taeho said without emotion. "The question is whether their sacrifice will serve a purpose." Chief Engineer Min Ho monitored the enemy communications they were intercepting. "Captain, the Reapers are transmitting tactical data to all their units. They are coordinating the massacre from a central command node." "Where?" Taeho asked. Minho checked his readings. "The signals are coming from the largest construction platform, the one in high orbit above the planet's north pole." Taeho nodded and turned to his tactical display. The massive platform was exactly where his studies had predicted it would be. The Reapers always placed their command centers in the most heavily defended locations. "All hands, prepare for combat," he announced over the ship's communication system. "We are about to show these machines something they have never seen before." The Endurance began moving toward the planet, using the gas giant's radiation to mask its approach. The ship's thick hull protected them from the deadly energies that would have fried more advanced vessels. To Reaper sensors, they looked like just another piece of space debris. "Sir, the enemy command platform is heavily shielded," reported Lieutenant Haewon. "Energy weapons will not penetrate those defenses." "Good thing we are not using energy weapons," Taeho replied. The main battle was nearly over. Only 3 Allied ships remained operational, and they were fleeing toward the system's edge. The planetary weapon had stopped firing, its job complete. The Reapers began moving their fleet toward the fleeing survivors to finish them off. That was when Captain Taeho made his move. The Endurance dropped its stealth approach and accelerated directly toward the command platform. Its fusion engines blazed with full power as the human ship revealed itself to the enemy. "Sir, they have detected us," Navigator Jiwoo reported. "Multiple Reaper ships are moving to intercept." "Let them come," Taeho said. He activated his ship's weapon systems for the first time in months. "All railgun batteries, target the command. Platform's main support structure. Load kinetic penetrator rounds." "Kinetic rounds loaded and ready," Chief Engineer Minho confirmed. The Reaper interceptors opened fire with energy weapons that could melt asteroids. The beams struck the Endurance's thick armor and reflected harmlessly into space. The human ship's primitive defenses were too simple for the sophisticated weapons to lock onto effectively. "Sir, their weapons are not penetrating our armor," Lieutenant Haewon reported with amazement. "Old-fashioned steel and ceramic," Taeho said with satisfaction. "Too simple for their targeting systems to analyze." The Endurance closed to optimal firing range. Through the viewports, They could see the massive Reaper command platform looming ahead like a metal mountain. Its weapons were powerful enough to destroy planets, but they were all designed to target fast-moving, high-technology vessels. "Fire!" Captain Tejo ordered. The railguns spoke with the voice of thunder. Solid metal projectiles accelerated to significant fractions of light speed, tore through space toward their target. No energy shields could stop them. No adaptive armor could deflect them. They struck the command platform with the force of falling meteors. The ancient weapons punched through the Reaper defenses like they were made of paper. Explosions rippled along the platform's hull as vital systems failed. For the first time in the war, Void Reaper technology had met something it could not adapt to counter. "Direct hits on multiple sections," Lieutenant HFY reported. "The platform is losing structural integrity." Tejo smiled for the first time in months. "Continue firing all batteries. Show them what happens when they underestimate human engineering." The second railgun salvo tore through the Reaper command platform like a hurricane through paper houses. Massive sections of the station broke away and tumbled into space. Emergency lights flickered across its surface as critical systems failed. One by one. "Target their communication arrays," Captain Tejo ordered. "Cut off their ability to coordinate the fleet." Lieutenant HFY worked her targeting controls with deadly precision. The Endurance's primitive computers might have been slow by alien standards, but they were also unhackable by Reaper electronic warfare. "Targeting main transmission tower. Firing." Another kinetic round struck home, the tower that had been coordinating. The massacre of the Allied fleet exploded in a shower of metal fragments. Suddenly, Reaper ships throughout the system began moving with less coordination, their perfect formation breaking apart. "Sir, enemy vessels are moving to surround us," Navigator Jiwoo reported. 12 interceptors approaching from multiple vectors." "Let them come closer," Tejo said calmly. "Chief Minho, prepare the missile batteries, nuclear warheads, not the fancy exotic matter ones the aliens prefer." The engineer's fingers flew over his controls. "Sir, nuclear weapons are considered primitive by galactic standards. Most species abandoned them centuries ago." "Which is exactly why they will work," Tejo replied. "The Reapers have never encountered them before." The intercepting Reaper ships closed in like mechanical sharks. Their hulls gleamed with adaptive armor that had deflected every weapon the galaxy could throw at them. Energy beams and plasma bolts fired from their weapon ports, creating a deadly web around the human vessel. But the Endurance's thick armor plating absorbed the punishment without serious damage. The ship had been built for durability rather than speed or elegance. Every plate of steel had been designed to withstand enormous punishment and keep fighting. "Sir, their energy weapons are not penetrating our defenses," Lieutenant HFY said with growing excitement. "Our armor is too simple for their targeting systems to overcome." "Fire missiles," Tejo ordered. "Full spread." 20 nuclear-tipped missiles launched from the Endurance's weapon bays. They were crude by galactic standards, simple fusion warheads, guided by basic computer systems. No exotic matter, no quantum entanglement, no advanced alien technology. Just human engineering at its most fundamental level. The Reaper ships tried to intercept the incoming missiles with their point defense systems. Their computers analyzed the warheads and found nothing they recognized as dangerous. The weapons appeared too primitive to pose a threat to their advanced defenses. The first nuclear warhead detonated against a Reaper interceptor's hull. The explosion was not the clean, focused destruction of exotic matter weapons. It was raw, violent, and overwhelming. The primitive fusion reaction simply ignored the ship's adaptive armor and vaporized everything within a kilometer radius. "Direct hit!" Lieutenant Haywan shouted. "Enemy ship destroyed!" More nuclear warheads found their targets. The Reapers had no defense against weapons they had never encountered before. Their adaptive technology was designed to counter advanced alien weaponry, not crude human nuclear devices. "Sir, the surviving enemy ships are retreating," Navigator Jiwoo reported. "They appear confused by our weapon types." "They cannot adapt to what they do not understand," Taeho said with satisfaction. "Continue targeting the command platform. We need to finish this before they figure out how to counter us." The massive space station was already dying. Fires burned in the oxygen-rich sections, while the vacuum sections were filled with escaping atmosphere. But it was still functional enough to coordinate the Reaper fleet's movements. "All railguns, concentrated fire on the platform's main reactor," Taeho ordered. "End this." The kinetic barrage that followed was devastating. Solid metal projectiles moving at enormous speed punched through every defense the Reapers had built. The platform's reactor containment failed in a chain reaction that lit up the entire star system. When the explosion cleared, nothing remained of the command platform except expanding plasma and scattered debris. The Reaper fleet suddenly found itself without central coordination. Ships began moving independently, their perfect unity shattered. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the surviving Allied ships," Chief Engineer Minho reported. "It is Admiral Quan Sik." "How is that possible?" Lieutenant Haiwan asked. "We saw his flagship destroyed. He must have transferred to another vessel before the explosion," Taeho said. "Put him through." Admiral Quan Sik's image appeared on the main screen. He was badly injured, with burns covering half his face, but he was alive. Behind him, the bridge of an Etherian cruiser was visible through the smoke. "Captain Taeho," the Admiral said in amazement. "By all the gods of space, what are you doing? Your ship should not be able to penetrate Reaper defenses." "We use weapons they have never seen before," Taeho replied simply. "Nuclear warheads and kinetic projectiles. Technology so old that their systems do not recognize it as a threat." "Impossible," Commander Yuna's voice came from off-screen. "Primitive weapons cannot defeat advanced defenses." "They can when the defenses are designed to counter advanced weapons," Taeho corrected. "The Reaper's adaptive armor works by analyzing incoming attacks and developing countermeasures, but they cannot counter what they do not understand." The Yas' truth of his words was evident throughout the star system. Reaper ships that had seemed invincible were now burning wrecks. Their perfect coordination was broken. For the first time since the war began, they appeared vulnerable. "Sir, more enemy. Ships are approaching," Navigator Jiwoo warned, "but they are keeping their distance. They seem afraid to come closer." "Fear is good," Taeho said. "Fear makes enemies predictable." He turned to his tactical display and began planning the next phase of his attack. The command platform was destroyed, but there were still construction, yards full of partially completed ships. If those vessels were allowed to finish construction, they would eventually overwhelm any defense. "All hands, prepare for assault on the orbital shipyards," he announced. "We finish what we started." The Endurance turned toward the massive construction facilities orbiting the planet. These were the real target, the factories where the Reaper invasion fleet was being built. Destroying them would set back enemy plans by months or years. "Sir, those shipyards are heavily defended," Lieutenant Haywan warned, "and they are much larger than the command platform." "Then we use bigger weapons," Taeho replied. He activated his ship's deepest weapons storage. "Chief Minho, prepare the special package." The engineer's eyes widened. Sir, are you certain? That weapon has never been tested in actual combat. Today, we test it, Tae-ho said firmly. Deep in the Endurance's cargo hold, robotic systems began assembling something that would have shocked the galaxy if they had known of its existence. It was a weapon so crude, so primitive, that no civilized species had ever considered building one. It was also, potentially, the most destructive device ever created by human hands. Package ready for deployment, Chief Engineer Min-ho reported. But sir, once we fire this, there will be no hiding what we are capable of. Good, Captain Tae-ho said. It is time the galaxy knew that humans do not fight like anyone else. The Endurance accelerated toward the shipyards, carrying death in its belly and vengeance in its heart. Behind them, the scattered Reaper fleet struggled to reorganize without their command center. The war was about to change forever. The orbital shipyards of Terminus stretched across space like a metal city. Thousands of Void Reaper vessels in various stages of construction filled the massive facilities. Some were barely started frameworks of dark metal. Others were nearly complete warships waiting only for their final systems to be installed. Captain Tae-ho studied the target through his ship's telescopes. Each facility was the size of a small moon, protected by defensive stations that bristled with weapons. It was the most heavily fortified position he had ever seen. Sir, I count over 50 defense platforms, Lieutenant Haewon reported from her tactical station. Each one mounts enough firepower to destroy a fleet. They will not be expecting our approach, Tae-ho replied calmly. Their sensors are designed to track fast-moving energy signatures. We are too slow and too primitive to register as a threat. The Endurance moved through the asteroid field that surrounded the shipyards. The ship's thick hull scraped against floating rocks, leaving scratches that would have horrified alien captains. But Tae-ho did not care about appearances. He cared about results. Chief Min-ho, status on the special package? He asked. The engineer consulted his instruments. Fusion device is fully armed and ready for deployment. But, sir, once we launch this weapon, every species in the galaxy will know that humans possess planet-killer technology. Let them know, Tae-ho said. Perhaps it will make them think twice before dismissing us as primitive. Navigator Ji-woo tracked their approach to the target zone. Sir, optimal deployment position in 3 minutes, but the enemy will detect us long before we reach firing range. No, Tae-ho corrected. They will detect debris floating toward their facility. Nothing more. He was right. The Reaper sensors swept over the Endurance multiple times without recognizing it as a threat. The human ship's simple construction and low energy output made it invisible to systems designed to track advanced alien vessels. When they reached the deployment point, Tae-ho gave the order that would change everything. Launch the package. A single missile ejected from the Endurance's cargo bay. It was larger than their normal weapons, but not by much. To any observer, it would have looked like an oversized torpedo with crude guidance systems. Nothing special, nothing threatening. The Rikai missile drifted toward the largest shipyard facility, powered only by small maneuvering thrusters. It moved so slowly that the Reaper point defense systems ignored it completely. Their computers classified it as space junk, too primitive to be dangerous. Impact in 30 seconds, Chief Engineer Min-ho announced. All hands, brace for shockwave. Lieutenant Haewon watched the missile's progress on her tactical display. Sir, that weapon does not look powerful enough to damage such a massive facility. Appearances can be deceiving, Tae-ho replied. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. The missile struck the shipyard's main hull and disappeared inside through what appeared to be a service port. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the entire facility began to glow from within. Fusion cascade initiated, Minho reported. The reaction is spreading through their power grid. The human weapon was not sophisticated. It was simply a very large fusion bomb designed to trigger chain reactions in other power sources. When it detonated inside the shipyard, it caused every reactor and power cell in the facility to overload simultaneously. The explosion that followed dwarfed anything seen in the war so far. The entire shipyard vanished in a ball of nuclear fire that lit up the planet's surface like a second sun. The shockwave spread out in all directions, destroying 2 smaller facilities and damaging several others. "By the ancestors," whispered Navigator Jiwoo. "Sir, we just destroyed their entire construction capability." "1 facility," Taeho corrected. "There are 3 more." He turned the Endurance toward the next target. The remaining shipyards were now on high alert, their defense systems scanning frantically for the threat that had appeared from nowhere. But they were still looking for advanced alien technology, not primitive human weapons. "Sir, enemy ships are moving to intercept us," Lieutenant Haywan reported. 20 vessels approaching from the 2nd shipyard. "Standard intercept pattern," Taeho observed. "They still do not understand what they are facing." The Reaper ships closed in with perfect formation, flying, their weapons charged with deadly energy as they prepared to eliminate the primitive human vessel. But when they opened fire, their sophisticated targeting systems could not achieve solid locks on the Endurance's simple hull. "Return fire," Taeho ordered. "Rail guns and nuclear missiles. Show them what real firepower looks like." The human weapons spoke with brutal efficiency. Kinetic rounds punched through Reaper armor like it was made of cloth. Nuclear warheads vaporized entire ships in balls of fusion fire. Within minutes, the intercepting force was reduced to glowing debris. "Enemy ships destroyed," Lieutenant Haywan reported with growing confidence. "Sir, they cannot adapt to our weapons fast enough. Because our weapons are too simple to adapt to," Taeho explained. "Rail guns fire lumps of metal. Nuclear bombs create fusion reactions. There is nothing sophisticated for their systems to analyze and counter." The 2nd shipyard fell to another fusion cascade weapon. Then the 3rd. Each explosion sent shock waves throughout the star system as months of Reaper construction work vanished in nuclear fire. By the time the Endurance reached the 4th and final facility, word of the human ship's capabilities had spread throughout the enemy fleet. Reaper vessels kept their distance, unwilling to face weapons they could not understand or counter. "Sir, the remaining shipyard appears to be evacuating," Navigator Jiwoo reported. "Multiple ships are leaving the facility." "Let them run," Taeho said. "Fear is our ally now." The final fusion weapon destroyed the last shipyard in an explosion visible from the planet's surface. When the fires died down, nothing remained of the Reaper construction facilities except expanding clouds of radioactive gas. "All targets destroyed," Lieutenant Haywan announced. "Sir, we have just crippled their entire invasion fleet." The communication system activated with an incoming transmission. Admiral Kwan-Sik's image appeared on the main screen, but now he was joined by Commander Yuna and Hive Queen Do-Hyun. All 3 alien leaders stared at the human captain with expressions of amazement. "Captain Taeho," Admiral Kwan-Sik said slowly, "what you have accomplished here is impossible. How did one primitive ship destroy an entire Reaper facility?" "We used the weapons available to us," Taeho replied simply. "Sometimes old methods work better than new ones." Commander Yuna leaned forward, her crystalline features reflecting the light of the still-burning explosions. Those were nuclear weapons, were they not? We abandoned such crude devices centuries ago. You abandoned them, Taeho corrected. We perfected them. Hive Queen Du-hyun's mandibles clicked together as she spoke through her translator. The Hive requests permission to study human weapon technology. Your kinetic projectiles and fusion devices could be valuable additions to our arsenal, as could our manufacturing techniques, added Admiral Kwon-sik. Perhaps human ship construction methods have advantages we have overlooked. Taeho looked at the three alien commanders who had spent weeks dismissing him as irrelevant. Now they were asking for his help. The irony was not lost on him. We will share what we can, he said diplomatically. But first, we must finish this war. The war may already be over, Commander Yuna said. Without their shipyards, the Reapers cannot replace their losses. You have given us time to rebuild our fleets and develop new strategies. Using human tactics, Admiral Kwon-sik added. It seems we have much to learn from your species. Lieutenant Hae-won watched the exchange with satisfaction. For weeks, she had endured the aliens' mockery of human capabilities. Now those same beings were asking to learn from the crew they had dismissed as primitive. Sir, she said quietly to her captain, the fleet is requesting instructions. They want to know what our next move should be. Taeho considered the question. The immediate threat was ended, but the war would continue. There were other Reaper fleets, other facilities, other battles to fight. And now the galaxy knew that humanity possessed weapons and tactics that could make a difference. Tell them we return to Earth, he said finally. We have shown what one human ship can do. Imagine what an entire human fleet could accomplish. As the Endurance turned toward home, messages began flooding in from across the galaxy. Species that had ignored humanity's requests for trade agreements now wanted to discuss technology sharing. Worlds that had dismissed human colonies as irrelevant suddenly saw them as valuable allies. The slow human warship that everyone had mocked was now the most famous vessel in known space. Its captain had proven that sometimes the simplest approach was the most effective. And in the depths of space, the remaining Void Reaper ships fled toward distant stars, carrying word of a new threat they could not understand or counter. For the first time in their existence, the perfect machines had encountered something that made them afraid. The age of human warfare had begun.